Hi everyone, good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you. Damn you, take you away, Alex muttered to himself. It was a long time ago. As a child he had heard from his grandmother that such words should not be used to curse anyone. There is a moment in every day when these words come true, and no one knows when that moment will fall. When I was young, I saw a woman say such a thing to her daughter, and the girl ran off into the woods. They caught her and brought her home, so be careful. Alex, Dushka, don't say such words. Since then, Alex said so to anyone who wronged him, or at least thought to himself, but apparently did not once hit the right moment. No one was going anywhere, or his grandmother had told such a tale, but the habit remained. Now he wished it on Lanie's wife. It wasn't the first time, but again he didn't get it, and he would have been hit by someone like Lana. Any evil force would run away on its own. But can you hear me or not? I'm talking to the wall. What are you muttering under your breath? I'm asking you about the trip. Would you keep your voice down? The baby's asleep, he reminded his wife. The baby's asleep in his room, you can't hear him. And stop referring to him. You didn't hire me to babysit. And if I had, I would have kicked you out the very next day. So here I am. But I think I've run out of patience. I'll have to sort it all out myself without my grandmother's tales. I would have to get a divorce, he added to himself, as he knew that the procedure itself was not pleasant. And I don't even want to think about what to do. He was lucky to choose such a bitch as a second wife, although she wasn't like that at first. Maybe she was just pretending to be a widower with 3 years of experience. Passion blinds his eyes, and other people saw it, warned them, and Mom too. Alex, open your eyes. It's not the kind of wife you need, but a mother to Alice in the first place. It's like he really didn't see anything. He didn't even know his wife's name was Fiona until after the application. He thought it was Lana and Lana. Asked him later why she was called that. Oh, forget it. It's such a corny sort of Fiona. Ugh. And I want to be one of the only ones. It's not like I lied about being, say Josephine. I just shortened my name, which I don't like. That's okay. I don't care if it's Lana Josephine Glass. He didn't love her for her name. He loved her for her beauty. That's 1. And 2 and 3 and so on. Probably for her beauty too. But why should he be surprised? His first wife Diana was a beauty too. She died very young. They only lived together for 1.5 years. And how happily they lived. They made plans. They thought they'd be young, beautiful, and happy forever. They found out about a serious obstacle to this happiness in one of the brightest moments. That is, after the birth of their daughter. Everything seemed fine. Everything was fine. There were no problems during pregnancy. But just before the birth of my daughter, the doctors suddenly got worried. They put her in the hospital before her due date. They did a C-section. Alex thought something was wrong with the baby. In fact, he thought it was fixable. After all, he could have another baby as long as his wife was okay. But during the operation, it turned out that his Diana had a problem. At first, she was even discharged from the hospital. They said that she had to be monitored, treated as an outpatient, undergo certain procedures. And then she had to have another surgery and another. Alex was already a fairly successful businessman at the time. He had the money, and he was ready to give everything he had. As long as Diana was healthy or at least alive, let her go to hospitals for treatment. But Alice wasn't even 1 year old yet when Diana was gone. For a whole year, Alex himself was dying of grief. He didn't want to live. What for? If a wife so young, beautiful, beloved, gone forever, there would be no more of her. He would have felt better if she had gone to someone else, even if she had taken Alice with her, as long as she was somewhere else. but she was gone. Family and friends tried to be supportive. You have to live for Diana's memory and for your daughter. Think about it. Who are you going to leave Alice with? She's a little girl without a mother, and he's left without everything. Diane was his life, and now she's gone. It was like there was nothing to live for. But he lived. He continued to get up in the morning, and every time he was horrified, he realized all over again. Because in his dreams she would come to him, and they were happy. And every awakening was like a little death. So it was the other way around. But after a year, he started to come around. And for my daughter's sake, I regretted that I had missed a year of her life. I was busy first treating my wife, then my own worries. Who could blame him for that? It's really scary to lose someone you love like that. I never thought he would love someone, much less marry. Especially not. After all, he wasn't his own daughter. She was also the main thing in his life. He didn't even want to think that Alice would have to live with some stepmother. And then this one showed up. Lana. He fell in love. But what can you do 3 years alone? Not every man can handle that. Besides, Lana wasn't a bad girl to begin with. Beautiful. Yes, interesting. Even the slight bitchiness that was already apparent in her seemed to be something necessary that gave the relationship some spice. And apparently, she had already realized then what benefits a relationship with Alex would promise her. And preferably not just any relationship, but a real, serious one. And managed to drive the case. So Alex proposed to her, except of course with a caveat. "Will you love my daughter?" he asked. Seriously, so she answered, "I already love her." "How do you love her? You haven't even seen her yet." Alex was surprised. "Well, if she looks like you, how could you not love her?" Lana smiled, and he thought everything was going to be okay. The first time he met the baby, it really wasn't bad. Okay, had fun talking to her future stepdaughter, playing something, and Alice reached out to her as if she really felt a kindred spirit. And this is very reassuring and convinced that he was not wrong. "We should get married. You have to get married someday anyway. And here. Please, the best option is coming to you. A real wife for a prominent businessman. Tall, slim blonde, and a natural blonde with makeup, and not stupid, able to talk and say nothing when necessary. Just not at home. Yes, she started showing her character from the very beginning, apparently believing that Alex loves her and will forgive her and take it all and go nowhere. She did at first. He was patient, polite, and preventively gave gifts after every tantrum. After all, the poor darling is suffering so much. She suffers because of his neglect. One thing he could never tolerate was a bad attitude toward his daughter. In fact, okay, never hurt. And Alice just did not like. And very soon after she got married and moved into their house, she stopped treating the child in any way. There was a nanny, a grandmother came over. Let them take care of it. And in general, she does. The 4th year, it's time to send her to kindergarten. And preferably in a daycare center. There are some good ones now. There and the development there and everything. And she won't be stomping on my head all day long. Alex answered right away that there will be no daycare centers, especially no 24-hour kindergartens. The child gets a great upbringing at home, too. And to his beautiful stepmother and does not think to pester. Children in general is worth a smart people who treats them how. And if they see that the relationship is not very good, they will not ask for it. All the more attention the girl received in abundance. Grandmother and father, and from the nurse and the other children, interacted with the playground and in circles where she was taken. Smart? You can't tell. Apparently, she thought she had finally conquered her husband, and he wasn't going anywhere. Started pretending she was jealous of her daughter. Hoped she'd change too. And lately, the fact that Alex spent a lot of time with his daughter to his wife, it became even on the hand because she was less and less often at home. There were plenty of excuses: fitness classes, massages, beauty salons, shopping. Several times a year, she demanded money for trips to various resorts. She took twice as much money as she needed and took it with her. What do you want me to do? Of course you need money to take with you. Well, it's not like you can't say no, although all sorts of doubts arose. Doubts of fidelity, plans they'd come up on their own, so people would point out, but here and there were rumors that she was seen in the company of a certain young man, and the relationship there was clearly not business. So after 3 years of such a life, there was nothing left of love. More and more often thought that it would be necessary to end this marriage. But when I hinted about it to his wife, the tantrums, screams, vows of love, and threats to commit suicide began again. For a while, she even sort of calmed down and started acting quieter. She even started calling her daughter Alice. She held on for a week, I guess. And then it started again. Give me money for a trip to pay for a season ticket for the 5th for 10. And Alex, by the way, did not only have to deal with family matters, and not only have to deal with family matters, and not only the vagaries of the order of a tired spouse, but also the business. He was not more dexterous in his dealings. He tried honestly to do it so that no one would be offended by him. He knew that it was fraught with danger, and in general he did not like to deceive people, even though some people thought he was doing it wrong. Business was business. But Alex was sure of his success. He owed it to his own conscience and nobility. Business is not robbery after all. It was necessary to conduct business honestly, and he demanded the same from others and was ruthless to debtors. He did not believe his promises and did not buy any tearful explanations. And how you will do this is your own business. But again, in good faith. No interest was demanded. He did not resell his debtors to any gangsters. Alex generally tried not to get involved with debts and did not get involved himself and did not give others. What was the need for unnecessary problems? True, he had one from a long time ago. A man of difficult fate in the past, tried in court, but long ago abandoned all ties with the criminal, decided to live honestly and conduct an honest business. And for that he needed money. Alex surrendered because this man's business plan was quite real. And indeed, things were going well at first, and then either he went bankrupt or something. He asked for a reprieve and suddenly disappeared. He doesn't pay back the debt. He didn't let me know about him either. Alex told a business partner that he was busy for the next few days. We need to collect on a debt that's not that small. Who's that from, Walker? Asked the mate. No, Henderson. Oh, yeah. Haven't you got it from him yet? But I congratulate you very much. You'll get nothing now. You're broke. What do you mean you can't get it? It's all official. You have to give him what he'll give you if there's nothing. You'll see, he'll show you his naked ass and tell you there's no money. And he'll tell you how poor and miserable he is. His wife ran away, his son is sick. There's no money available. Wait, and you say it's official, but what will he tell me? That's his business. Of course, we're all good at making up stories, but there's nothing. He's got something left. He built and built and built and built and finished the house. Yeah, he's got a house. By the way, that's an idea. Yeah, he could take it away from him for his debt. And he's not going anywhere. He'll give it back like a darling. So he really is bankrupt. And he's in such dire circumstances, then his son is sick. How should I know? He's probably not very sick. He's kind of limping a little bit. But that's his problem. It's not a bad house. It's gorgeous, even in a good place. So for a long time we'll be just right, and still there will be left for some room or house ruined. Don't be afraid to go out on the street. That's true. But there's a child, though. I agree. Can be an obstacle with all these things. You know, they can be a problem. But that's not a problem. They'll sign whatever you want. I'll give you the number if you need it. Thanks for that. But how's he going to be in some hut with a kid? Of course you're good too. You found someone to lend the ex-inmate. Perhaps the comrade is an experienced businessman and also honest. In general, the man was quite right. But Alex was a father himself, and a lonely one at that. And it turns out that his debtor also lives with a child without a wife. And the child is sick as well. How could you take away the house, his only home? Decided to talk to the debtor. His name was Patrick. The conversation turned out to be difficult, that the man was not going to cry about his difficult situation. He just honestly told me that there was no money and that he was bankrupt. All I have left is the house. A good plot, too, but I can't give it away as a whole, especially since it is twice as expensive as the amount owed. Let's make a deal. I'll give you half the house for the debt. It would still be very profitable for you. And don't think it'll turn into a communal apartment. There's a separate entrance on 2 sides. We won't even see each other. And we'll share the lot too, by the way, so we won't get in each other's way. And here we have a beautiful place. It's close to the forest and the river, and it's the best place to live. I'll come and have a look one day, but I can't promise anything, Alex said, although he had already understood that he would have to agree to Patrick's proposal. The house outside the city had been a dream of his for a long time, but he had not been able to buy a suitable one. Recently, he had even gone to look at it with his mother. She didn't like it. And if everything seems to be nearby, and the infrastructure is established, and the neighbors are decent, it can do this good deed and a dacha to purchase. And the man does not ruin, finally, not to kick out of the house, bearing in mind that he is going to where a little child lives. Alex bought all sorts of treats. First of all, he wasn't used to coming home without treats. And secondly, he needed to show that he meant no harm. When he arrived at the place, he took a quick look around. Well, groomed and quite expansive. There's a place for children to walk. The house also looked very representative. 2 stories with a balcony. The owner greeted his lender in a friendly manner, although it was obvious that he was somewhat nervous, which was quite understandable. He invited him into the spacious hallway, where a boy of about 6 years of age, really falling hard on one leg, also came out. He said a polite hello, and Alex handed him presents. The boy thanked him modestly, and his father told him, "Tom, you mind your own business. Don't eat everything at once." And he put a stack of papers on the table. I called the appraiser for this. It's all about my house and the lot. There's a plan, there's a price. You can make sure that the amount of my debt is even a little bit less than half the value of the house. I'll show you how you can live without getting in each other's way. In principle, I'd give it all away. Well, I'd sell the other half too, because I need the money for my son's surgery. But the thing is, this is our only place to live. Come on, let's go see everything. Alex was quite satisfied with the results of what he saw. He also realized that this man was really in a great difficulty, and that he was the only person who could help him. You know, everything suits me. I'll take half of the house for the debt, and I'll pay you the difference. Thank you very much. Patrick was astonished at the offer. He hadn't expected it. Of course, he had heard that Alex was an honorable man, but after all, the events of the past few years had taught him not to believe in unselfish help, not to speak of strangers when his own wife, still in the maternity ward, when she found out that his son was born with problems, immediately told him that the child had to be abandoned. "I do not need a freak," she immediately said. And when she learned that her husband was going to take the baby anyway, she said, "And I still want to live for myself, want to marry a normal man, and have normal children." Well, since then, she did not appear. And she wasn't interested in her son's condition either. Then Patrick's affairs began to be arranged by his fathers. He wasn't a stranger. "Thank you very much. I don't know how to thank you," he said in a stifled voice, realizing that the money would not be enough for the surgery, after which, in addition, we'll need a costly rehabilitation. Well, all the same, It would be easier to get the missing money than to pay for the whole thing. His mental calculation was interrupted by little Tom. He came into the hall, holding a piece of paper in his hand, and said cheerfully, "Look, Daddy, how I drew it. Doesn't it look real? It looks just like it. Tom, I told you to stay out of our way. This is business we're talking about. What do you got there?" Yeah, it looks like it. Very good. You're doing great." Patrick handed a piece of paper to Alex. "Look, I have an artist growing up, or the jeweler drew it himself." Alex took the leaf with a polite smile and was dumbfounded. There was indeed a rather accurate drawing of his first wife, Diana's pendant. Every detail had been observed. The boy had obviously tried very hard. There was no mistaking it. And Alex himself remembered this silver pendant perfectly, an author's work made by some high-class private jeweler to the individual order of Diana's parents. She herself remembered neither her father nor her mother. And this pendant was the only thing the girl had got from them. Diana was buried. But how and where could Tom have seen it? "What's wrong, Alex? Are you unwell?" The owner of the mansion flustered, seeing how deathly pale his creditor was. "No, I'm all right," Alex answered. "Tell me, Tom, where did you see a piece of jewelry like that? On a certain lady?" "She came to our kindergarten. I really liked it, and she even let me touch it and take a closer look. It's really cool. And the aunt was very kind. And I remembered everything and drew it. She came by the other day." "Wait." Alex took out his phone, opened the picture of his dead wife, and showed the boy what looked like that kind aunt. "Yes, so that's her." The boy got excited. "Do you know her too?" "I do," Alex muttered. "I'm sorry, Patrick. I have to go." "Wait. What about signing the contract?" The debtor got worried. "It's okay, we'll take care of it," I promised. "Everything will be all right. It's an emergency, I'm sorry. Bye, kid. I'll see you later." He patted the boy on the head, and he left in a hurry. He couldn't understand what had happened, how to explain what he saw. Alex was a realist. He did not believe in mysticism of any kind. His wife was dead, for 3 years now, resting in cemetery. He buried her himself. That's a fact. You can't argue with that. The only explanation is that not long ago his debtor's son was dating a woman who looked exactly like his wife, and with the same exact clone. Doppelganger. It was rumored that everyone has a double, but it was hard to believe. And then there was the cologne. Then what is it? A twin sister. But Diana didn't have any sisters. At least she didn't remember that and never talked about her family. She was an orphan and grew up in an orphanage from infancy. That's what Alex went to, hoping to find out the truth. He remembered the orphanage perfectly. He and Diane had gone there several times. She remembered the place where she grew up. She loved the former teachers of the orphanage. What was her name? A simple enough name. Cassie, I think. She was old then. And now, whether she would remember Diana and be able to say anything. But when he got to the orphanage, he knew he'd have to look for her himself. The young nurse Alex turned to said that the entire staff had changed over the past 15 years. The current headmistress has been working for only 5 years, and the previous one this girl doesn't remember. But someone might remember. Do you have a human resources department? I need her address at least. I hope she's still alive. I don't know, honestly. There's a human resources department, of course, but it's closed now. But our nurse is Aunt Maria. She's been working here for years. They called the same aunt. Maria is also a woman. She's not young. When Alex asked about Diana, she just waved her hands. How many years has it been? How many guys? If I remembered every last name, my head would burst a long time ago. I don't remember. Don't even ask. All right. And the old manager, Cassie, do you know her address, please? Alex asked. But how could you not? We all live around here. In the old days, they used to put us near work. We see a lot of her now. I'm sorry, I don't remember the numbers. So give me a piece of paper, I'll draw you a way to find it. Thanking the babysitter, Alex followed the directions. Fortunately, Cassie was at home, and despite her advanced age and poor health, retained both a clear mind and a good memory. What about Diana? I remember her very well. And you're her husband. Why didn't she come herself? I haven't seen her in a long time. Diana's dead. She was very ill. But that's not why I'm here. You see, a very strange thing happened. And Alex told me what he'd heard from the boy. Wow, Granny frowned. I didn't think it would come out after all these years. Yeah, well, what's to hide? Yeah, there were 2 twin sisters. And they really had the same columns. From their parents, that's all they had, in fact. So they gave it to the second sister. Maddie was her name when she was adopted by good people. Why was only one sister adopted? You can't separate siblings, much less twins. Technically, of course, you can't. And there is a law, Cassie sighed. But sometimes it happens. What can you do if the adoptive parents weren't willing and able to take 2 at a time? The family is very good. And we thought we could give at least one of the sisters a chance to grow up in a normal environment. What good is it if they both grew up in an orphanage? That's the reason we sometimes violate. Besides, the girls were very young. They didn't realize they were sisters yet. But at least you could have told Diane when she graduated that she had a sister. I mean, that's a big deal. Maybe. But you didn't, so what can you do? Okay, I agree, too late. But at least you can tell me the address of those parents. I really need to find that sister. Why would you? Especially if Diana's not alive anymore. I'm sorry, but it's just a waste of time. It won't do you or Diana any good. And it won't do you or Diana any good. And it won't do the other sister any good either. Well, we'll just have to deal with that ourselves. I understand adoption secrecy and all that. But this girl is of age and probably already knows that she was with her daughter. Maybe you're right, but even if you are, I can't give you that address. Believe me, please. It's not because of any secrets or just reluctance. I don't know him. I don't even remember the adoptive parent's last name. Well, trust me. I wouldn't be an old woman. Lie to you, whatever. But at least Alex had learned something, and so, after thanking him, he left. After all, he had a chance to find his dead wife's sister. All through the same boy, through Tom. One way or another, Alex had to meet his father to arrange the deal, and at the same time ask the kid about who the kind woman was who owned the Kulam. He himself did not know why he needed her so much. Maybe just as Alice's next of kin. After all, she might have children, brothers, sisters, his daughters. The next day he went to Patrick's to finalize the sale of the house. But his main concern, of course, was meeting Tom. He learned from the boy that she wasn't working. At their daycare center, she just came in to examine the children as a psychologist. But what did it solve in some questions? Alex was now confident that he could easily find his wife's sister. But what would happen next? That's what he was thinking about. Thought the least of it. He just wanted to look at her, especially since she looked so much like Diana. And if she was similar in character, she would certainly not refuse to meet her niece. He and Patrick went about the transaction and did not even think about the fact that he was doing everything without the slightest benefit to himself. Moreover, at a substantial loss, even Patrick himself was surprised by such a thing. But Alex had nothing to worry about. He did not explain his actions. He only hurried to go to the kindergarten in time to find out what kind of psychologist came to them to examine the children. And so, in fact, it turned out. After the first visit, Alex came out with the address of the person he was interested in. She lived in the neighboring town, which was not too far away. It was about an hour by car. Alex decided to go there on his day off. Already, he was running a few errands. and as curious as he was, the visit to his student had to be postponed. On Friday morning, however, Alice approached him with a request. "Dad, and we'll go to the playground tomorrow. You promise to play with me?" "Alice, I have things to do tomorrow morning. Let's go on Sunday." "You're fooling me again. You're always busy lately. Sometimes I don't see you at all. You don't like me." "Come on, honey. I love you more than anyone else." Alex saw that his daughter was about to cry, and his heart clenched. A motherless orphan and a father with no time to even spend with her. "All right, I'll go and see this Maddie on Sunday. I'll stay with my daughter tomorrow. You really ought to have a conscience. As long as I go, yesterday's the day. Alice will forget me completely." They spent Saturday together, and Sunday morning Alex packed up and drove to his late wife's sister's house. He was only given an address. There was no phone number. He didn't even know if he could get a hold of her. Alex was very anxious as he pressed the doorbell of the right apartment. Still, he found himself unprepared to see an almost exact duplicate of the one who had left him forever. "Who are you? And who do you want?" the woman asked in amazement, so much like Diana. And her voice was so familiar. Alex couldn't get a word out. His throat went into spasm. But the woman was apparently tired of waiting for an answer. Or maybe she was even frightened by his strange appearance and behavior and tried to slam the door. "Wait." He finally managed to squeeze out of himself, holding the door. "I really need to talk to you. I am your sister's husband." "You are mistaken. I have no sister." The landlady pulled the door open again. "Yes, there is. I mean, there was. She's dead. Wait a minute. I know all about you. You're Maddie, the psychologist, and you were with your wife's daughter when she was a baby. Is that why you didn't know you had a twin sister?" "I brought pictures. I'll show you." The woman believed him after all. "I'm sorry, but what you're saying sounds like nonsense." "Yes, I know I was raised by foster parents, but I've never heard of any sister." Alex began to talk about Diane, about how he himself had found out about her sister's existence, laid out pictures of him and his wife in the happy days of his life. Maddie looked at them and shook her head and wiped away her tears. Then she talked about her life. "My foster parents were already dead. They were old. And for some reason they never told me about any relatives, though they might have known. Dependent. Yeah, here it is. That it was left over from my biological parents. That it was left over from my biological parents, they told me. I even wanted to find my birth mother. But it didn't work out. I mean, at first, when my parents were alive, I didn't want to hurt them. And then I realized that it was no use. I know very well what this woman has to say. Who gave birth to me? That she was young, helpless. That she was cheated, I was stolen. And all that nonsense that cuckoo mothers say, who have abandoned their children. I had nothing to do with her, but if I had known about my sister, I probably would have tried to find her. But now that opportunity is lost. But you have a niece, Alice, who is 6. She doesn't remember her mother at all, but I think she would be happy to meet her own aunt. Do you have any children? No, I live alone. I was married, but I don't have any kids, and I don't have a husband anymore. Divorced. Yes, I'd love to meet my niece. It's a good thing you found me. I just wish I'd never seen Diana. I had dreamed so much of having a sister since I was a little girl. From that day on, Alex's friendship with Maddie began. It turned out they had many topics in common. He introduced her to his daughter, but he didn't want to invite her home yet because of Lana. She had become a complete stranger to him. He wanted a divorce, but he just couldn't get on with it. He just didn't have the time. Alex involuntarily was largely abandoned. He had to make up for lost time. Communicating with Maddie and work. It worked. Not always, even more in demand was his second wife, Lana. He'd had very little contact with her lately, more than that. avoided all contact, which at first made the woman angry, and then began to scare her. She realized that his words about a divorce, about which he had already spoken several times, was not an empty phrase. After fright came the fury of the volcano, ready to tear and throw. It was a joke to lose such a husband, and with it to lose all financial support. And if she would not have money, then why would her lover, young handsome fitness center trainer, need her? She realized a long time ago that he needed her mostly just as a source of labor income of varying magnitude and sometimes very good. Several times they went to resorts together, and at her expense, that is, at her husband's expense. But the fact is that her lover did not spend a penny. He received some gifts from her regularly, of course. And now what? As soon as he hears that there is no husband anymore, that's all he's seen. There are plenty of rich young and not so young women in the same fitness center, and he is never without attention, but she is not. The situation had to be urgently corrected. But how? The poor woman was racking her brains in despair. I have no idea what to do. But something must be done. Evil, she thought. By the way, for this Alex and his girl, 3 years of life wasted. In that time, I could have found another, more reliable husband and not a widower. And now it's the same thing. I again turned from a rich married woman, a businessman, into a useless scrum with no education, no profession, not even an apartment. And what? I'll go back to my parents in their lousy village. Well, no. Better to hang myself. Although, of course, she wasn't going to hang herself. She had other plans brewing in her head. She decided to influence her husband through what was dearest to him, through her daughter, that trace of him. What did she call the girl to herself? If anything happened to the girl, her husband would not care about his mistresses, or who knows, his wife would be there to comfort him, to help him strong, then perhaps find the girl alive or dead, and this would instantly raise her credibility in the eyes of Alec. After all, she is the one who loves him. The faithful wife will be there for him when he's going crazy with worry. And then, when it turns out what happened there with the girl, the same, she will be there for him. What exactly will she do with the girl? Okay, she didn't know yet. Of course she wasn't going to kill anyone, at least not with her own hands. But it would be seen from there. But she couldn't do it by herself. She needed helpers. Those very strange hands. The ideal option is to attract the lover. But that's not something to dream about. There is no way he will agree to such affairs. It opens all the cards in front of him, too. It is not necessary to go for it. But it will be easier if the proceedings begin. It should be a person reliable, but a stranger. Someone with whom they will see each other once, do the job and leave. Not knowing anything about each other. Best of all, of course, that person should have some kind of criminal past, and such people Lana knew from her past life. True, they were not exactly suited for the first part of her plan, but they could introduce you to someone, and they were perfect for the second part. That's a lot of money to pay those scoundrels. All her savings would be gone. And it would be nice if it was enough, she sighed. She met with her former acquaintances, not so much bandits, but people who were willing to do anything for the sake of money, and explained the task, arranged for payment. And don't worry, you'll be left out in the cold. Another man will pick up the girl from the daycare center, bring her to you, and give her to you. That's all. We could have picked her up from daycare ourselves. Have you seen yourself in the mirror lately? I can tell by looking at you that you're a rather dark person. No one will give you a child. So come on. Find me someone who's decent looking. And I'll pay him too, of course. And don't spread the word. Who does what and why? Why can't you take it yourself? Because everyone there knows me. And when they look for the girl, they'll say I took her. And I don't need it. Well, okay, a man will bring us this child. And then what? What should we do with her? Whatever you want. That doesn't interest me anymore. I'm not saying we should kill her. Please, you don't have to kill her. Just take her somewhere far away to another city, or better yet, to the country. The main thing is to take her far away from here. And then leave it there and that's it. Someone will pick it up. And then it's none of our business. The main thing is not to be found very quickly. Even better. So they won't find it at all. And why do I have to explain everything to you? You get the money. What's the problem? The main thing is to find me a man who can pick up the girl from the kindergarten. But what kind of person? Henderson? What's the matter? He's a pretty decent guy. He's kind of out of business. He's been a decent man for a long time. He's kind of short on cash these days. The kid's sick and he's not doing well. So he'll do it, he ain't going nowhere. And after talking all the details of the rascal, they went to negotiate with the man who was to kidnap Alice from the kindergarten. He turned out to be the same Henderson Patrick, who had sold half the house to Alex. When he heard what he was being offered, he was horrified. Are you out of your mind? I don't even cross the street without a green light. And you're asking me to steal children? Do you know how much they pay for that? I know very well. The customer said it's very good money. You'll get it right away, cash in hand. What's wrong with that? Besides, we don't tell you to steal this baby, rust it. Eat it, take it from the daycare center. Bring it back to us, and that's it. No one will even have time to report anything. Well, it's just a prank, a joke. It's a joke, not us. And your girls are trying to scare your father. He's going to divorce her. And she decided to play a trick on him like that. Don't be such a girl. You know we wouldn't agree to any hand either. But for the money, it's nothing. Why not? Although, if you don't want the money, then please say no and sit wherever you want. Of course I want the money. And if you say there's nothing criminal going on, what do you have to do? Swear on blood or give me a receipt? All right, I'll do it. I really need the money. Patrick didn't like the assignment very much. But what could he do if he didn't have enough money for Tom's rehab? He even thought of going to Alex himself and asking him for more money. But it wasn't very convenient. In addition, he had no idea when and how he would be able to pay it back. He in no way wanted to harm any child, not even to save his son. But these cronies really didn't seem to be murderers or terrorists, just not very decent people. And the way they explained the nature of this venture to him seemed quite logical. Really, it was no big deal. He would pick up some girl from kindergarten, take her wherever he was told, and then the parents would sort it out themselves, especially since he had been assured that the girl's mother would be there too, and that she would pay the money. Everything went perfectly. Patrick was given the child without a word, when he showed a note supposedly from the mother. The young educator was not even particularly interested in what was written in the note. She, apparently, wanted to quickly dismiss all the children and go home herself. Alice went with the strange uncle without any questions. After all, he said that now they go to her daddy, who is waiting for her, and he and her father, just in the morning, agreed that after kindergarten he would take her to Aunt Maddie, whom the girl has already sincerely loved. She trustfully put her hand in Patrick's and asked, "Will Aunt Maddie be there too?" "Yes, of course," replied the man who had no idea. But already in the car, the girl was suddenly worried. "Where are we going?" "Is it this way?" Aunt Maddie is on a different road. "It's faster this way. Don't worry. We'll get there very soon and you'll see Daddy and Auntie and Mommy all you want." "Mom, what mom? I don't have a mother." "I don't have a mother. I only have Aunt Maddie, who looks like my mother. And my mama's dead. I only have a daddy." "That's all right. You'll see Daddy will be there. Don't worry. Tell me something about Daddy, about Aunt Maddie. It'll be a long time before we get there. It'll be a long time before we get there." "If you decided to kidnap me," Alice blurted out, "then Daddy will find you and take you to jail. He loves me. I am the only one he has. You probably want a ransom, don't you? But you won't. Daddy's got lots of money, but he's already bought a big, beautiful house. And he won't give it to you. What are you making up? You've seen too many movies." Nobody's kidnapping you, and I don't need money. I have my own house. What's your daddy's name? Patrick got suspicious. My dad's name is Alex, and he's a good man. Everyone respects him, Alex. Patrick even slowed the car down in amazement. It couldn't have been a coincidence, could it? Kidnapped the child of the man who had done so much good for him. Or was it really some kind of bizarre practical joke? But in any case, it's a very wicked prank. The girl has no mother, and she was abducted. Does your father have a wife? He asked Alice. Well, yes, that's it. Only Daddy will divorce her anyway. You don't need her. It was a long way to his destination, and Patrick was wondering what to do. Who was he taking the girl to? Why, a certain Lana had decided to kidnap her, and to whom he should give the child, and to the very comrades he would not have trusted with a puppy, let alone a baby girl. But maybe there really are some people involved who don't want to hurt Alice. Where am I going with this? And how it may end? He was lost in speculation, already approaching the right place. Exactly 2 comrades were waiting for him there. No one else to the girl's mother, much less her father, was there. He stopped before reaching the place, turned the car around so that it was blocking the road. He opened the passenger seat door and told Alice to get out quietly and run. There will be people along this road to those houses. Call them for help and they will help you. Don't ask anything. Just run. The girl slipped out of the car and hurriedly ran towards the houses. Patrick opened the car door and shouted, "Where is the girl's mother? Why can't I see her?" They moved toward him. "You won't get her. You tricked me. I'm going to leave now and call the police. The girl's already run for help, so you'd better stay put." "You bastard." They were getting close enough. Patrick realized this was getting serious, but he wasn't afraid. "Come on, get closer. You can't get away anyway. I know you well. Will you have to answer for kidnapping a child?" That was what his former comrades were most afraid of, having realized that now they were no longer in danger of receiving fabulous money, but rather a long imprisonment. The first thing they decided to do was to get rid of the main witness, that is, his Patrick Henderson. The man felt a severe blow to his side and did not immediately realize that he had not been hit with his fist, but with a knife, and the wound was serious. Since it was not intended to hurt him, they wanted to kill him, and they most likely accomplished their goal. But apparently, Alice's guardian angel did not sleep. The girl ran to the police for help. She said that they wanted to kidnap her, and the criminals were nearby on the road. The police believed the frightened child, went to the address and managed to detain the intruders. An ambulance was called to Patrick. He was sent to the hospital. The girl's father was also called. The criminal group was eventually exposed. Lana was also arrested. Alex was horrified at what his wife had done, but there was little else he could do. He understood that Patrick wasn't that guilty. He had agreed to the crime for the sake of his son, for the money for the operation, and he had already paid for it with his health. The doctors were doing everything they could, but when Alex visited his former debtor, he was told there was no hope. However, Patrick was still alive and even conscious. Most of all, he was worried about his son, Tom. "Don't worry, Patrick. I'm looking after him. The main thing is to get better yourself," Alex told him. But Patrick was not saved. He died of his wounds. The funeral was made by Alex, as the deceased had no relatives. He also decided to adopt little Tom. The boy's health had to be taken care of, and hardly anyone would do that in an orphanage. The divorce with Lana was quickly arranged, and soon Alex proposed to Maddie. They both knew they had no other option. The girl had long been in love with him. She considered Alice her daughter, and the girl had already begun to call her mother. Now they needed to become married in order to formalize the adoption of your Tom's orphan. Half of Patrick's house already belonged to Alex. The other half went to his son in his will. So the whole family moved into a large, fully equipped home. The boy's health was taken care of. Tom was undergoing a serious operation and then rehabilitation. During treatment, he recovered a little from the death of his father and became attached to the people who sincerely cared about him, visited him in the hospital, and helped him with everything. After he was discharged from the hospital, he went back to his family. Yes, his father was gone, but there were foster parents who loved him and cared for him. And in addition, his sister is the same age as Alice. They quickly became true friends. So 2 years passed. The children had grown up, went to school, successfully studied. Tom had fully recovered and was no different from the other children. He did not abandon drawing, but liked movement games. With pleasure he ran, played soccer, liked to ride a bicycle. It was this that almost caused a serious tragedy. The lot near the house was quite large. He could play there as much as he wanted, but it was more interesting to ride his bike in the open space. His parents tried not to let him go alone. Still, there was a busy highway not far from the property. Tom knew all the risks. But how could he keep a boy who was relearning the world after a long life within 4 walls? After all, he couldn't move freely until he was almost 7 years old. And then one day, leaving his parents far behind, he accelerated on his bicycle and almost flew out onto the roadway. It seemed impossible to avoid trouble, but fortunately, there was a woman who managed to grab the bike by the handlebars just beside the road. "Where are you going, babe?" she said reproachfully, almost falling over herself because of the accident. Neither young nor well-groomed. Frightened, they ran up, hugged the boy, began to reassure him. Father turned to the woman. "Thank you very much. You saved our racer." "How can I thank you?" "No, I can't thank you enough." The woman waved it off, rubbing her bruised knee. "Still, maybe someone else did. But it was you who was there. At least tell me your name and your phone number. I don't have any cash. I'd have to wire you the number. That's the least I can do. I'm used to being grateful." "Well, if that's the case, I could use it." The woman gave me her number. "What was your name?" "Selena," the woman answered. "Tell me, did you have any daughters?" "Twin girls." "Why do you want to know that?" "Ever?" "No." "When was that?" The woman was surprised. "Maddie, come here." Alex called his wife and showed her the pendant, please. A surprised Maddie came over, pulled out the chain. She showed it to me. "Look, Selena, does this thing mean anything to you?" The way the woman clutched at her face and paid for it was more eloquent than any words. "How is it?" she muttered. "Really, I knew it, didn't I? I didn't wait any longer. I thought I'd lost you forever." "That means my grandson." She pointed to Tom. "It turns out it is. There's a granddaughter, too. Second daughter, but she's gone. She's dead. Come and visit us at our place nearby. Tell us what happened." Maddie stared into her eyes at the woman who appeared to be her birth mother, the one she had longed to find, but then changed her mind. And now she was closer than ever to this life-worn tramp. At home, everyone had calmed down a little. They came to their senses after the shock they had undergone. The adults sat down at the table to find out their family's latest secret. "I see what a mean thing I did when I was young, giving up on you. So Diana went through life without seeing me or knowing anything. But at least you, Diana, will know. And the story, in general, is a simple one. I was single when I was young, living in a dorm, and I got involved with a guy. I loved him and thought we'd get married, but I trusted him too. Only before I found out I was pregnant, I was suspected of having a fatal disease, cancer. Anyway, I was very scared at the time, but I think I'm going to have a baby, and the baby would be an orphan. The guy ran away, so I gave birth and gave up the girls, and I got this pendant from my parents. A relative or someone made it for their wedding. I do not know because they also died early, and I was a little girl. But I left them, and I think that they would know about each other. Maybe I'll find them someday. I wanted to be cured. After giving birth, I went for a checkup, and they told me there was nothing wrong with you. There's no cancer. There's no cancer. You can live as long as you want. But how could I live? I wanted to take my daughters back. Yeah, too late. They said they were adopted. Only one was adopted, Alex noticed. They told me that both of them were adopted and that they were kicked out of the orphanage. You said no. That's all the children you don't need. I didn't really insist. There's really nowhere to live. There was nothing to live on. But I had a bunk in a dormitory, 6 people in a room, and I put 2 more newborns in it. That's how I stayed on my own. It was very hard. Of course, what was there to find solace in? I drank from the bottle, and I confess, I was very low. I got kicked out of my job and the dormitory. I lived in various corners until some guy took me in and started to make a mess. Oh, I'll find another one or something like that. Now I've taken over an abandoned house in a village in which no one lives. That's how I live. I plant the garden. Sometimes I help the local old people. They don't pay much. That's the life. No, but that's no good, Alex said. Don't do that. It's a bird's right to live. Still, you're the mother of my wives. And the first and the second, that's twice my mother-in-law and my children's grandmother. Why would you want to live in some abandoned houses now, where they really can or kick you out? Or the house will fall apart on its own. There's plenty of room here for everyone. Isn't that right, Maddie? Of course she wiped away her tears. Think about it, Mother. What would it be like for me to live with my own mother wandering around? Family's something to be treasured. How guilty or not guilty you were is not for me to judge. So stay. And the family grew by one more person. Alice and Tom got a grandmother, Maddie got a mother, and Alex got a mother-in-law. Selena was happy. She was living with her own people for the first time, a home where no one would kick her out for sure. And soon she found out that Maddie was going to have a baby too. At the ultrasound, she got a surprise. Not 1, but 2. A girl and a boy. If you like the story, I hope you don't mind giving me a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. Have a good day. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.